The silence that fell over the ballroom was deafening. 200 former classmates held their breath as Victoria Morgan stood frozen, champagne glass slipping from her fingers and shattering on the marble floor. The man she'd just publicly humiliated, her ex-boyfriend Ethan, stood with his head bowed, the weight of her cruel words crushing him. But before anyone could react, a commanding voice cut through the tension. "That's enough." All heads turned to see Nathaniel Hayes, tech billionaire and their once unassuming classmate, rising from his seat. What happened next would change everything, not just for Ethan and Victoria, but for everyone who witnessed it. If you're enjoying this story of redemption, humility, and unexpected second chances, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more emotional journeys that remind us what truly matters in life. Victoria Morgan had spent 3 months preparing for this night. The 10-year high school reunion at Westlake Academy was her chance to finally show everyone who she'd become, especially Ethan Foster. She stepped out of her rented Porsche, smoothing down her designer dress that had cost more than her monthly rent. The diamond earrings she'd splurged on caught the evening light. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to scream success. "Ms. Morgan, may I take your keys?" the valet asked, his eyes widening slightly at her appearance. "Of course," she replied with practiced nonchalance, dropping the keys into his palm. She'd rehearsed this moment countless times in her mind, the grand entrance, the envious glances, the whispers that would follow her across the room. Inside the hotel ballroom, Westlake Academy's crest hung prominently above a stage where a jazz quartet played. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over tables adorned with white roses and navy blue ribbons, the school colors. A banner reading "Welcome Back, Class of 2016, stretched across the far wall. Victoria paused at the entrance, scanning the crowd until she spotted her old friend group. They squealed when they saw her, rushing over with hugs and compliments. "Oh my God, Victoria. You look amazing. Is that Prada? You've done so well. We've been dying to see you." She soaked in their admiration, carefully dropping hints about her thriving marketing career in New York. What they didn't know was that she'd been laid off 3 months ago and was burning through her savings to maintain appearances. The Porsche? Rented. The dress? Going back tomorrow. The earrings? Maxed out her last credit card. "So, who's here?" Victoria asked casually, though there was only one person she truly cared about seeing. "Everyone. Even Ethan Foster," said Samantha, her former roommate. "Can you believe it? After everything that happened between you two." Victoria's smile tightened. "Where is he?" Samantha pointed toward the bar. "Over there. Alone, as usual." Ethan stood with his back to her, wearing a simple navy suit that looked well-worn but clean. His shoulders were broader than she remembered, his dark hair shorter. 10 years ago, they'd been inseparable, high school sweethearts everyone believed would last forever. Until she'd broken his heart during their sophomore year of college. "He's a teacher now," Samantha continued. "At Westlake, actually. Math department." Victoria nearly choked on her champagne. "A teacher? Here." Samantha nodded. "The kids love him. He coaches basketball too." "A teacher. How ordinary. How disappointing." Victoria had expected, hoped, for more. After all, Ethan had been brilliant. National Merit Scholar. Full ride to MIT. Everyone had expected great things from him. What happened to MIT? To his engineering dreams? Victoria asked. Samantha's expression softened. His mom got sick during his junior year. Cancer. He dropped out to take care of her, moved back home. By the time she recovered, he'd switched gears completely. Said he found his calling in education. Something uncomfortable twisted in Victoria's stomach. She remembered Ethan's mother, a kind woman who treated Victoria like a daughter. She pushed the feeling away. This wasn't about his mother. This was about proving she'd made the right choice when she'd left him for Tyler Williams, the business major with connections and promises of a glamorous future. A future that had evaporated when Tyler left her for his executive assistant 3 years later. "He should say hello," Victoria said, straightening her shoulders. "For old times, sake." As she approached Ethan, memories flooded back, study sessions in his mother's kitchen, slow dancing at prom, tearful promises as they left for different colleges. The way his eyes had looked when she'd told him it was over. The way his voice had broken when he'd asked, "Is it because he has money?" She denied it then. She couldn't deny it now. "Hello, Ethan," she said, tapping him on the shoulder. He turned, and for a moment, surprise flickered across his face before settling into a polite smile. "Victoria. You look well." Up close, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, not from age, but from smiling. His face was more weathered than she remembered, but his eyes were the same deep brown that had once made her heart race. "You too," she lied, noting his scuffed shoes and the slight fraying at his cuff. "I hear you're teaching now." He nodded, a genuine smile warming his features. "Best decision I ever made. The kids are amazing." "That's nice," she said, the word feeling inadequate. "I'm in marketing. In New York. Senior brand strategist for Apex Global." The last slipped out easily. Apex Global had rejected her application twice. "That sounds impressive," Ethan said sincerely. "You always were ambitious." Was that judgment in his voice? Victoria felt defensive suddenly. "And you always talked about changing the world with your engineering innovations. What happened to that dream?" Something flickered in his eyes, not hurt, but something deeper. Dreams change. People change. Or at least, they should. Before she could respond, the microphone squealed as someone tapped it. Their class president, now a local politician, stood on stage announcing dinner and the awards portion of the evening. "We should find our seats," Ethan said, clearly eager to end their conversation. "Sure," Victoria replied, watching him walk away. He hadn't asked for her number. Hadn't seemed impressed by her fake job or her real designer dress. Hadn't they seemed to care at all. It's done more than she expected. Dinner passed in a blur of small talk and reminiscing. Victoria barely touched her food, watching Ethan across the room. He sat with other teachers, laughing easily, listening intently when others spoke. He seemed content. It infuriated her. The awards began: most changed, most successful, traveled furthest, most children. Predictable categories for a high school reunion. Victoria straightened when they announced most successful, certain her carefully crafted image would win her this recognition. And the award goes to Nathaniel Ayes. A quiet, unassuming man in a simple but impeccably tailored suit stood up from a corner table. Victoria vaguely remembered him, always in the background, smart but painfully shy. What had he done to deserve this? The class president explained. After graduating from Stanford, Nathaniel founded Hayes Technologies, revolutionizing renewable energy storage. His company went public last year with a valuation of $12 billion. But more importantly, his innovations are helping bring sustainable electricity to developing nations. A billionaire. In their class. And she hadn't even recognized him. Nathaniel accepted the award with humble thanks and quickly returned to his seat, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. Victoria couldn't take her eyes off him. $12 billion. And he'd been invisible to her in high school. As the formal program ended and the dance floor opened, Victoria found herself at the bar, ordering something stronger than champagne. 3 drinks later, her carefully constructed facade was cracking. She watched Ethan dancing with a pretty science teacher, their movements comfortable and familiar. Were they together? The thought made her stomach churn. He deserves better than you anyway, she muttered to herself, not realizing how loud she'd spoken until Samantha appeared at her side. Are you okay, Victoria? Maybe you should slow down. I'm fine, she snapped, pulling away. Perfectly fine. Successful. Important. Samantha's expression turned concerned. Victoria, what's going on? You've been acting strange all night. Nothing's going on. Everything's perfect. My life is perfect. The word sounded hollow even to her own ears. Is it? Because you keep staring at Ethan like you want to either kiss him or kill him. Victoria laughed bitterly. He's a nobody. A high school teacher. He made the right choice. Samantha's eyes widened. Is that what this is about? You're still justifying breaking up with him after all these years? You don't need to justify anything. Look at me, and look at him. Victoria gestured wildly, spilling her drink. I'm successful. I'm important. It's just ordinary. Samantha stepped back, disappointment clear on her face. You haven't changed at all, have you? Still measuring everything by status and money. Because that's what matters. Victoria's voice rose, drawing attention from nearby tables. That's what's always mattered. Not to Ethan, Samantha said quietly. Never to Ethan. Something in Victoria snapped. The alcohol, the pressure of maintaining her lies, the sight of Ethan happy without her, it all became too much. She stood abruptly, grabbing the microphone from the DJ's stand before anyone could stop her. Can I have everyone's attention? Her voice echoed through the ballroom. The music stopped. Conversation style. Allies turned to her. I have something to say to Ethan Foster. Ethan looked up, confusion and alarm crossing his face. The pretty science teacher beside him placed a protective hand on his arm. 10 years ago, I broke up with this man because I thought he wouldn't amount to anything, Victoria announced, her words slightly slurred. I left him for someone with better prospects, better connections, better everything. A horrified murmur rippled through the crowd. Ethan stood frozen, his face pale. And look at us now. Victoria continued, gesturing grandly. Me, a senior executive in New York. And him? A high school teacher with frayed cuffs and scuffed shoes. The room went deadly silent. Ethan's expression shifted from shock to a deep, quiet hurt that was somehow worse than anger. I made the right choice, Victoria declared, her voice breaking slightly. I made the right choice. She stood swaying slightly, champagne glass in hand, as the weight of what she'd done descended on her. No one moved. No one spoke. Then her fingers went numb, and the glass slipped, shattering on the marble floor with a crash that seemed to echo forever. That's when Nathaniel Hayes stood up. That's enough, he said, his voice quiet but carrying across the silent room. He walked slowly toward Victoria, his expression not angry but deeply disappointed. Ms. Morgan, he said, taking the microphone gently from her hand, I believe you've misunderstood what success truly means. He turned to face the crowd, his presence commanding despite his unassuming appearance. Ethan Foster may not be wealthy by conventional standards, but he is one of the most successful people I know. Ethan looked up in surprise. Nathaniel continued. 3 years ago, when I was developing the educational initiative for Hayes Technologies, I needed someone who truly understood how to inspire young minds. Every expert I consulted gave me the same name, Ethan Foster. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the crowd. The curriculum he helped develop is now being used in over 5,000 schools worldwide. The teaching methods he pioneered have increased STEM engagement among underprivileged students by 60%. And the scholarship program he runs, quietly, without seeking recognition, has sent 27 Westlake students to college who otherwise couldn't have afforded it. Victoria felt the floor shifting beneath her feet. Ethan had done all that? But beyond professional accomplishments, Nathaniel continued, Ethan exemplifies what real success looks like. It shows up. It cares. It makes a difference in lives that matter. When his mother fell ill, he set aside his own ambitions to care for her. When his community needed dedicated teachers, he answered the call. Nathaniel turned to look directly at Victoria. Success isn't measured in designer labels or job titles, Ms. Morgan. It's measured in lives touched, in integrity maintained, in kindness extended even when it's difficult. He handed the microphone to Ethan, who stood speechless for a moment before finding his voice. Thank you, Natty, he said quietly. Then he looked at Victoria, not with anger but with something like compassion. I'm sorry your measure of success has made you so unhappy, Victoria. I truly am. The simple sincerity of his words broke something in her. Tears welled up, and before they could fall, she turned and fled the ballroom, the weight of her humiliation and the truth of her empty life crashing down around her. Victoria sat on a bench in the hotel garden, mascara streaking down her face, heels discarded on the grass beside her. The cool night air cleared her head somewhat, bringing with it the full realization of what she'd done. She'd publicly humiliated herself and Ethan. She'd revealed the ugliness that had been growing inside her for years. She'd burned the last bridges to her past. Mind if I join you? She looked up to find Nathaniel Hayes standing there, hands in his pockets, expression gentle. Come to gloat, she asked bitterly. No, he said simply, sitting beside her. Come to check if you're okay. Why would you care? I just made a complete fool of myself. I insulted your friend. Nathaniel was quiet for a moment. Everyone deserves compassion, especially when they're at their lowest. I don't need your pity, she snapped. It's not pity. It's recognition. He looked at her directly. I recognize the desperation in your eyes. I've seen it before. In the mirror. That surprised her enough to stop her tears. You? The billionaire genius? I smiled slightly. Before all that. When I was trying to launch my first company and failing spectacularly. When I was sleeping on friends' couches and eating ramen for every meal. When I was measuring my worth by my bank account and coming up empty. What changed? She asked, genuinely curious. I met a teacher, he said. Who showed me that my value wasn't in what I owned or achieved, but in what I contributed. In how I treated others. In whether I used whatever talents I had to leave the world better than I found it. Isin, Victoria guessed. Nathaniel nodded. He was volunteering at a community center where I was hiding out to use their free Wi-Fi. We got talking. I didn't know I was struggling, I was too proud to admit it. But something about his perspective shifted something in me. I looked up at the stars. I stopped chasing success and started pursuing purpose. Ironically, that's when the success finally came. They sat in silence for a while, the sounds of the reunion continuing faintly in the background. I lost my job 3 months ago, Victoria finally admitted, the words painful but somehow relieving to speak aloud. Everything tonight is fake. The dress is rented. The car is borrowed. The job title is a lie. I know, he said gently. She looked at him in surprise. How? Because I've interviewed hundreds of senior brand strategists for my company. The real ones don't need to announce their titles within the first minute of conversation. Their work speaks for itself. Victoria laughed despite herself, a short, pained sound. God, I'm pathetic. No, Nathaniel said firmly. You're lost. There is a difference. He stood, offering his hand. Come on. Let's go back inside. I can't face them, she whispered. Not after what I did. You can, he insisted. It'll be hard. It'll be humbling. But that's where growth begins. Against her better judgment, Victoria took his hand and let him lead her back toward the ballroom. At the door, she hesitated. What do I say to him? To everyone? Nathaniel smiled slightly. The truth is usually a good place to start.